My name is Casey, and for one summer, I was a creature of the night. Not in a cool vampire way. In a 20-year-old college kid needs money for textbooks way. I took the night shift at the 7-Elevens on the corner of Ashford and Grove, 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. And let me tell you, that specific 7-Elevens at that specific time isn't a place. It's a waiting room. It's a brightly lit purgatory where the only things moving are the hot dogs on their greasy little rollers. The first few weeks were fine. Actually, they were just nothing. They were a blur of fluorescent lights, the chime of the front door, and the smell of stale coffee. I'd have the pre-bar rush around 1:30 a.m., a bunch of loud, happy drunks buying taquitos and Gatorade. Then, around 2 a.m., it would just die. The world would go silent. It would be just me, my accounting textbook, and the relentless hum of the freezers. My manager was this guy named Sal, a man in his late 50s who looked like he'd been perpetually damp his entire life. He always seemed tired, always complained about his sugar, which I learned was his diabetes. He'd shuffle in for the morning shift as I was leaving, smelling like Folgers and regret. Night was good, kid? He'd ask. Dead, Sal, I'd say. Always dead, he'd mumble, and that was that. In that desert of boredom, you start to notice the small things. The way the tile in front of the Red Bull fridge is cracked like a spiderweb. The way the S on the open 24 hours sign flickers, and only flickers. And you notice the regulars. I had a few. The night shift nurse who bought sugar-free gum. The cop who always got a large black coffee. And then there was the Slurpee man. I first saw him my second week. The door chimed at 3:03 a.m., not around 3. 3:03 on the dot. He was impossibly thin, like his skin was just draped over his bones. He wore this ancient, faded blue windbreaker, the kind your dad wears to mow the lawn, even though it was the middle of July and 90 degrees out. He was carrying one of those giant, old-school silver thermoses, the big, unbranded ones. He didn't look at me. He just glided, that's the only word for it, to the Slurpee machine. And he began his ritual. See, a normal person gets a Slurpee. They get cherry. Or Coke, maybe they mix too. This guy was a psychopath. He'd pull the lever for the blue raspberry for about 1 second. Then he'd stop. He'd move to the pina colada. 1 second, stop. Then the wild cherry. 1 second, stop. Then the Coke, the Mountain Dew, every single flavor, one by one, a tiny little squirt of each, until that giant thermos was full. He was making this layered, rainbow-colored monstrosity. A suicide, but with this weird, meticulous patience. The first time, I tried to be friendly. When he came to the counter, I said, "Man, that's a mix, huh? Bet that'll keep you up." He didn't look up. He just placed the thermos on the counter, and from his windbreaker pocket, he pulled a small handful of coins. Exact change. $2.14. He pushed them toward me. The weird thing was, the coins were warm. Like body warm. And sticky. I just figured he was sweaty. I mumbled thanks. He grabbed his thermos, and he glided out. 3:05 a.m. Every night. 3:03 a.m. The door chimes. The windbreaker. The thermos. The 1 second per flavor ritual. The sticky, warm, exact change. He never spoke. He never made eye contact. He just was. He became part of the flicker, part of the hum. He was my 3:03 ghost. I even told Sal about him. "Oh yeah," Sal grunted. "The Slurpee weirdo. He's harmless, just smells funny." About a month into my shift, I came in and Sal wasn't there to hand off. Instead, there was a new manager, a woman named Brenda. She was super peppy, all bright-eyed, and let's check that inventory. She told me Sal had to take some personal leave. Family stuff. I asked if he was okay, thinking about his diabetes. Brenda just shrugged. Oh, he'll be fine. He just needed a break. I didn't think much of it. The nights blurred on. The Slurpee man continued his visits. 3:03, the chime. The mix, the warm, damp coins. By this point, I'd stopped trying to talk to him. I'd just have the Slurpee large button ready on the register. I'd started keeping a little tub of wet wipes under the counter to clean my hands after he left. That sticky feeling was getting harder to wash off. And the snow? Sal was right. It wasn't sweat. It was sweet. Sickly sweet. Like meat that had been left in the fridge too long. Then came the night the machine broke. It was a Tuesday. Around midnight, the blue raspberry nozzle just gave up. It coughed, sputtered, and spit out a watery, bluish syrup and went silent. I spent an hour trying to fix it, fiddling with the tubes in the back, but it was dead. Finally, I just gave up and slapped a handwritten out of order sign on it. The rest of the night was normal. 1:30 a.m. drunk rush. Then silence. My textbook was open. I was trying to understand depreciation, and I was watching the clock. 2:50, 3 o'clock, 3:02, 3:03 a.m. The bell chimed. He came in, the windbreaker, the thermos. He glided to the machine, and he stopped. He just stood there, staring at my out of order sign. He didn't seem angry or confused. He just stood for a full minute. The silence in the store was so total, I could hear the tiny click, click, click of the hot dog rollers. I got uncomfortable. I called out from the register, "Hey, sorry, man. The blue one's busted. The other flavors all work fine, though." He didn't move. "Sir," I said, a little louder. "You good? You can still get the cherry." He turned his head, just his head, slowly, like an owl. His body stayed perfectly still, facing the machine. And for the first time, he looked at me. At me. His eyes. God, his eyes. They were milky, clouded over like two marbles that had been left in the dust. They weren't focused on me, but through me. A cold electric shock went straight up my spine. He made a sound. It wasn't a word. It was a wet, clicking sound from the back of his throat. Then he turned away from the Slurpee machine. I let out a breath. I didn't know I was holding. "Okay, have a good night then." He didn't walk to the door. He walked to the hot dog warmer. He stood in front of it, and he just stared at the hot dogs, spinning on their rollers. "Hey, man," I said, my voice shaking a little. "Stores, you leaving?" He lifted the glass lid. "Hey," I yelled. "You can't do that. It's a health code thing." He didn't grab a hot dog. He didn't grab the tongs. He just plunged his bare hand into the warmer. He laid his palm flat, right on top of the two hottest, greasiest rollers. I just froze. I was paralyzed. I could hear it. A faint SSSS. The smell of burnt skin and pork fat filled the air. His face was completely, totally blank. He held it there. 5 seconds. 10 seconds. He lifted his hand. It was red, glistening with grease. A perfect, black, charred line across his palm. He looked at his hand. Then he looked at me. That same, milky, unfocused stare. Then he just turned and walked out of the store. The bell chimed. I was shaking. I was hyperventilating. I ran to the door, locked it. I flipped the open sign to closed. I called Brenda right then at 3:10 in the morning. I don't even remember what I said. I was screaming. The Slurpee guy. He's insane. He burned himself. I quit. Right there on the phone. I'm done. I am done. You can come get the keys. I'm leaving them in the register. Brenda was confused, trying to calm me down. Casey, what guy? What are you talking about? The 303 guy. The Slurpee weirdo. Sal knows him. There was a pause. Casey, nobody comes in between 2 and 4. I've checked the tapes. It's a dead zone. You've been logging 0 sales for that whole window. What? No. I log his Slurpee every night. Wait. I looked at the register. I did ring him up. I always hit the button. But the change. The warm, sticky coins. I'd just been putting them in my pocket. I never put them in the register. It was dirty. I'd take them home and wash them. I looked at my register log. 0 sales. For an hour. No, I whispered. No, he's real. Casey, you're just tired, she said. Go home, get some sleep. We'll talk tomorrow. I hung up. I didn't go home. I sat in that locked store until the sun came up. A week passed. I never went back. Brenda kept calling. I didn't answer. I was trying to forget the smell of his hand. Then a detective came to my apartment. A real grim-faced detective. He asked me if I worked at the 7-Elevens. He asked me if I knew Salvatore Petrucci. Sal? Yeah, he was my manager. Is he okay? Is it his diabetes? The detective's face was hard. Mr. Petrucci was reported missing by his wife. Over a month ago, we just found his body. In the woods, about 5 miles off the highway. His car was out of gas. My stomach turned to ice. What? No, that's impossible. I saw him. The morning before Brenda started. I saw him a month ago. Son, according to the coroner, Sal's been dead for at least 5 weeks. It looks like he had a severe diabetic episode. Got confused. Wandered off. Died of exposure. 5 weeks? I was shaking my head. No. And then a thought hit me. So cold and so sharp, it took my breath away. What did he smell like? When you found him? The detective looked at me, his eyes full of pity and confusion. Son, he'd been out in the heat for 5 weeks. He didn't smell good. I knew that smell. Sickly sweet. The smell of meat left out too long. The detective showed me a picture. A driver's license photo of Sal. It was the Slurpee man. The same papery skin. The same milky, clouded-over eyes. But how? I whispered. He came in every night. 3:03 a.m. He bought a Slurpee. The detective asked to see the security footage. Brenda had to let us in. We sat in the tiny, cramped back office, watching the black and white feed. We fast-forwarded to 3:02 a.m., a random night. There I am, reading my textbook. 3:03 a.m. The camera on the front door shows it opening. The bell chimes. The camera on me shows me looking up, saying hey, to an empty aisle. We switch to the camera on the Slurpee machine. The nozzles. One by one. Blue raspberry. Pina colada. Wild cherry. They just pulled themselves down. A tiny 1-second squirt. Over and over. Filling a container that wasn't there. We watched the feed from the counter. Me, ringing up a sale. Holding out my hand. Mumbling thanks. wiping down the counter with a wet wipe. We watched the last night, the night the machine broke. We watched me talking to an empty corner. Watched me yell, "Sir, you good?" at the air. And then the hot dog warmer. The camera showed me staring, my face a mask of pure terror. The glass lid lifted by itself. It just hovered in the air for 10 seconds. Then it closed. The detective was silent. Brenda was crying. I just stared. He wasn't a ghost. He was a habit, a routine so burned into his brain that not even death could stop it. 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., go to work. Complain about the sugar. Go home. But his home was gone. His brain was rotted. But the habit was still there. 3:03 a.m., get a Slurpee. The sticky, warm coins, that wasn't sweat. It was him. The sweet smell. I didn't just see a ghost. I served him. For a month. I never went back. I dropped out of that accounting class. I can't go into a 7-Eleven's anymore. I can't even smell a Slurpee. Because I know what happens when you break the routine. I know what happens when you put a sign on the machine. He burned himself. On the rollers. He felt that. What do you think he would have done? If he could have reached me? Moving to a new city alone is a trip. My name is Sarah. I just graduated, landed my first real graphic design job in Austin, and found an apartment I could almost afford. It was a shoebox, basically. A tiny studio on the 3rd floor of a walk-up. But it was my shoebox. My first taste of real adult independence. The building itself was whatever, but the location had one glorious perk. It was directly across the street from a 24-hour 7-Eleven's. And for a 22-year-old who didn't know how to cook, that 7-Eleven's became my best friend. It was my kitchen, my pantry, my late-night confidant. Need milk for coffee? 7-Eleven's. Need a 1 a.m. ice cream bar because a client hated your logo? 7-Eleven's. Need to feel like you're not the only person awake in the entire world? 7-Eleven's. I got to know the employees. There was Maya, a girl my age with bright purple hair, who was always impossibly cheerful. There was Ben, a quiet guy who mostly just nodded and scanned your items, which I respected. And then there was Frank. The first time I saw him, I just figured he was the laziest employee in the world. He was an older guy, maybe in his 60s. He was tall, but sort of caved in, gaunt. His skin was the color of a dirty paper bag, and his red 7-Eleven's uniform was greasy and 2 sizes too big. And he just stood. He was always in aisle 4, the chip and snack aisle. He wasn't stocking. He wasn't cleaning. He wasn't fronting the bags, pulling them forward to make the shelf look full. He was just standing, facing the wall. Usually, he was perpendicular to the aisle, his shoulder almost touching the shelf, staring blankly at the Doritos. The first few times, I just navigated around him. It was a small store. I'd be trying to get to the Sun Chips, and he'd be right there, in the way. "Excuse me," I'd say. He wouldn't move. Not a flinch. I'd have to squeeze past him. My back to the Fritos, his back to me. I noticed something weird, though. He smelled off. Not like bee. Oh, not like cigarettes. He smelled musty. Like a box of old books you find in your grandma's attic. Like dust and old paper and something sour. And the other employees, Maya and Ben, they just ignored him. They'd walk around him like he was a permanent fixture, like a support beam, like he was just part of the store. I figured he must be the owner's weird relative or something. The guy who gets paid to just be there. I went in there almost every day for 2 weeks. And every day, Frank was there. Sometimes he'd be in front of the Doritos. Sometimes the Cheetos. But always aisle 4. Always standing. Always facing the wall. One night, I went in late. It was almost 2 a.m. I'd been staring at my laptop for hours, and my brain was fried. I needed brain food, which in my case meant a pint of Ben & Jerry's. It was just me and Ben in the store. The quiet guy. And of course, Frank. He was in aisle 4, as usual, staring at the Lays. I was at the freezer case at the back of the store, trying to decide between fish food and Cherry Garcia. I had this feeling, the being watched feeling. I glanced up. Frank, he had turned his head. His body was still facing the chips, but his head was cranked all the way around, and he was staring right at me. His eyes, God, they were just empty. There was no person in there, just 2 dark, vacant holes. I snatched the Cherry Garcia and practically ran to the counter. Ben rang me up without a word. I wanted to ask him so badly, dude, what is with that guy? He's a total creep. But Ben just had that don't talk to me vibe. I just paid and left, feeling Frank's eyes on my back until the door chimed shut. I tried to shake it off. Just a weird old guy. Whatever. A few days later, I was in there in the afternoon. I needed a bag of Takis. I went to aisle 4, and damn it, Frank was there. He was standing directly in front of the Takis, blocking my path. I was annoyed. Sir? Excuse me. Can I just get by? Nothing. Not a twitch. He just stared at the bags. I huffed, and I reached around him. I stuck my arm between his body and the shelf to grab the purple bag. My arm brushed his sleeve. He was ice cold. I'm not talking the AC is on, cold. I'm talking meat locker, cold. Bag of frozen peas, cold. It was so wrong that I snatched my hand back like I'd been burned. I dropped the bag of chips, and that's when I heard it. It wasn't a voice. It was a rustle, like dry leaves or tissue paper. You shouldn't be here. I froze. What? I whispered. He didn't turn. His back was still to me, but the sound came from him. Shouldn't be here. I didn't even bother to pick up the chips. I was out the door in 2 seconds. My heart was a hummingbird in my chest. I avoided the 7-Elevens. I started walking 6 blocks to the other convenience store, the one that smelled like bleach. But after a few days, I was out of coffee. And I was embarrassed. I was letting a weird, cold old man scare me out of my own neighborhood. So I went back. I forced myself. It was a bright, sunny afternoon. Maya, the purple-haired girl, was at the counter. I looked around. No Frank. I was so relieved. I felt stupid. He probably just had a day off. I grabbed my coffee and a muffin and went to the counter. Maya was her usual chipper self. Hey, Sarah. How's the new job? It's good, I said, trying to sound casual. Hey, quick question. Is Frank working today? The older guy? Maya's smile didn't just fade. It shattered. Her face went white. She dropped the muffin she was about to bag. What? What did you say? Frank? I said, my stomach starting to feel weird. The tall guy? Always in aisle 4? He said something really weird to me the other day. He's super creepy. Maya's hand shot across the counter and grabbed my arm. Her fingers were digging into my skin. You saw him? She whispered, her eyes wide with terror. He talked to you? Yeah, I said, pulling my arm back. What's his deal? Maya looked around the empty store, her eyes darting to aisle 4. She leaned in close, and her voice was a terrified, shaky whisper. Sarah, Frank owned this store. This was his 7-Eleventh. He died 2 years ago. My blood just stopped. It turned to slush. What? No, that's... I've seen him. Every day. I touched him. He's cold. He had a massive heart attack, Maya said, tears welling in her eyes. Right there. In aisle 4, he was stocking the Fritos. He's still here. What do you mean, he's still here? We all see him. She hissed. Ben, me, the day manager. He's part of the store. He doesn't usually talk to customers. He stocks? Stocks? I said, my voice cracking. He just stands there. He faces the wall. No, Maya said, and she pointed a trembling finger at aisle 4. Look at it. Just look at it. I looked, and my heart stopped. The aisle. It was perfect. Every single bag of chips, every box of cookies, every candy bar was pulled to the absolute front of the shelf. The labels were all facing out. It wasn't just stocked. It was curated. It was obsessive. We don't go down that aisle if we don't have to, Maya whispered. Ben tried to fix a shelf in there once. Frank, the entire shelf of Doritos just fell on him. He doesn't like it. He doesn't like it when we mess up his aisle. I don't remember leaving the store. I think I just dropped my coffee and walked out. I got back to my apartment, my shoebox, my safe place. I locked the door. I put the chain on. I sat on my bed, shaking, staring out my window at that building across the street. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every creak of the building made me jump. Every car that passed, I couldn't. Around 2 a.m., I must have dozed off because I heard a sound that it couldn't be real. Ding dong. I sat bolt upright in bed. My room was dark. Ding dong. It was the chime. The exact sound of the 7-Eleven's front door. And it was coming from my living room. My heart wasn't beating. It was just a solid block of ice. I'm dreaming, I whispered. I'm having a nightmare. I got out of bed. My legs felt like they were moving through wet cement. I crept to my bedroom door. I looked into my tiny living room. My front door, the one I had chain locked, was wide open. Standing in the hallway, silhouetted by the ugly, flickering fluorescent light, was Frank. His uniform was. It looked wet. The musty, sour smell. It was in my apartment. It was so strong I gagged. He was holding a purple bag of Takis. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't scream. He took one slow, shuffling step inside. He looked around. His empty eyes. They weren't looking at me. They were scanning my couch, my TV, my cheap IKEA bookshelf. His head turned. He looked at me, and he rustled. I told you, he whispered. You shouldn't be here. This is my apartment, I choked out. Frank took another step in. He dropped the bag of Takis on my coffee table. He looked at my messy desk, at the clothes I had piled on a chair. He looked back at me, and his face, it looked angry. This is aisle 4, he hissed. And it's a mess. You're a mess. You've been here all day. It's time to close. You have to leave. I screamed. I finally screamed. I slammed my bedroom door and fumbled with the lock. I heard him shuffling on the other side. I heard him straightening things. I heard him pick up a magazine and set it down. I called 911. I was hysterical. When the cops arrived, the front door was wide open. The chain was broken. Frank was gone, but the bag of Takis was still on my coffee table. The cops, they thought it was a stalker, a homeless guy. They took a report. They told me to get a new lock. I didn't get a new lock. I broke my lease. I packed my car in 30 minutes, and I just drove. I left my deposit. I left my coffee maker. I didn't care. I have a new apartment now. It's across town. It's expensive. It's on the 10th floor. There are no convenience stores anywhere near me. I order my groceries online, but I still have nightmares. I dream that I wake up, and my bedroom, it's wrong. The walls are lined with chips, with Doritos and Fritos and Cheetos. And Frank is standing in the corner. His hands are full of bags, and he's just staring at me. And he whispers, "It's time to close. You have to leave. You shouldn't be here." Some people, I think, are just built for the night shift. My name is Mike. I'm one of them. I'm not a people person. I like the quiet. I like the solitude. So the job at the 7-Elevens out on I-95 was perfect. This wasn't your neighborhood 7-Elevens. This was a last stop for gas kind of place. A bright, lonely island in a sea of dark farmland and pine trees, miles from the nearest town. Just us, the highway, and the truckers. The job was simple. Keep the coffee hot, watch the register, and don't fall asleep. And for safety, we had a rule. From midnight to 5 a.m., the main doors were locked, bolted, all transactions. All the gas, all the cigarettes, all the Red Bulls. They went through a small, bulletproof walk-up window. It had a little speaker and a thick metal drawer that you'd push back and forth. It was safe. I felt safe. For the first few weeks, it was just quiet. I'd read paperbacks. I'd listen to all-night talk radio. A trucker would come by every hour or so. Fill up, I'd make change, and they'd rumble off into the dark. It was peaceful. Then, one Tuesday at 3:17 a.m., he showed up. I didn't hear a car. I didn't hear a truck. I just looked up, and there was a man standing at the window. And he was immaculate. I'm talking a tailored three-piece charcoal gray suit, a crisp white shirt, a silver tie, shiny, expensive-looking shoes. He was carrying a sleek, black leather briefcase. He looked like a high-powered lawyer who had just materialized out of the cornfields. I hit the intercom. The speaker crackled. "Can I help you, man? You need a tow? Car breakdown?" The man, he just smiled. A big, white, perfect, toothpaste ad smile. He didn't say anything. He just knocked. 3 polite, measured taps on the bulletproof glass. I frowned. Sir? The intercom's on. I can hear you. You don't? You don't have to knock." He just kept smiling. Then he did something weird. He pointed. He pointed with one manicured finger right at the locked glass front doors. Then he pointed back at me. I can't let you in, man, I said, getting a little creeped out. Stores locked till 5 a.m. policy. You need something? Coffee? Use the drawer. His smile didn't change. It didn't even flicker. He just stared at me for another 10 seconds. Then he turned and walked away. He didn't walk to a car. He just walked back into the darkness toward the highway and vanished. I was weirded out. I mean, really weirded out. I checked the parking lot. Empty, except for my '98 Civic. I just shook my head. Drunk guy in a suit? A prank? Whatever. I went back to my book. The next night, Wednesday, I was watching the clock. I don't know why. I had this feeling. 3:16 a.m., 3:17 a.m. He was back. Same suit, same briefcase, same smile. I hit the intercom, and my voice was not friendly. Look, dude, I don't know what game you're playing, but it's not funny. What do you want? He just shook his head, still smiling. He pointed at the door. He pointed at me. Then he held up his briefcase. He tapped it. Tap, tap. Then he pointed at me again. I'm not letting you in, I said, my heart starting to hammer. Get the hell out of here, or I'm calling the cops. His smile didn't fade. He just turned and disappeared back into the night. The next night, Thursday, I was a wreck. I was dreading 3:17. I had my phone on the counter, 911 pre-dialed. I was chugging coffee, my hands shaking. 3:15, silence, just the hum of the freezer. 3:16, a big rig thundered by on the highway, its lights washing over the store. 3:17, he was there, and this time, I was angry. I was terrified, and that was coming out as anger. I slammed my hand on the intercom button. Get the hell out of here. I'm not kidding, man. I'm calling the cops right now. The man's smile. It widened. It got bigger. Too big. It looked unnatural. It looked painted on. He put his whole hand, his gloved, leather-gloved hand, flat against the glass, and he just stared. And I realized he wasn't looking at my face. He was looking at my name tag. He was staring at the little plastic rectangle on my chest that said, Mike. He held that stare, his smile too wide, his eyes locked on my name, for a full, silent, agonizing minute. Then he dropped his hand, turned, and walked away. The next night, Friday, I almost called in sick. I couldn't. I needed the money. I went in. I brought a baseball bat from my car. I stashed it behind the counter. I sat there from midnight on, just staring at the window. My paperback was forgotten. The radio was off. 3:15. My heart was in my throat. 3:16. I was gripping the baseball bat. 3:17. Nothing. The clock ticked over. 3:18. Nothing. 3:19. 3:20. He wasn't coming. I let out a breath I think I'd been holding for 3 days. I was shaking with relief. I did it. I finally scared him off. He knew I was serious. He was gone. I felt light. I felt giddy. I stood up, stretched. I needed to do something. I decided to restock the coffee filters. I walked into the stockroom. It was dead silent back there. Just boxes of cups and the huge walk-in freezer humming. And then I heard it. It was coming from the back delivery door, the solid steel, windowless, alley-facing door. My blood, it didn't run cold. It evaporated. It just stopped. That was impossible. That door led to a fenced-in, locked delivery alley. You couldn't get back there unless you had a key to the gate. Louder, this time. More impatient. I crept toward the door. My bat was out front. I was defenseless. There was a peephole, a tiny fisheye peephole. I whispered. Who's there? Silence. Just the hum of the freezer. I thought, it's my mind. I'm hearing things. I'm freaked out. I put my eye to the peephole. I saw nothing. Just the dark, empty alley, lit by one flickering yellow security light. I was about to pull away. I was about to laugh at myself. And a single blue, unblinking eye slammed into the other side of the peephole, staring right at me. I screamed. I don't think I've ever screamed like that. I fell backward, scrambling over boxes of Snickers. I scrambled to my feet. I ran. I sprinted out of the stockroom, back to the main counter, back to the bat, back to my phone. I was dialing 911, and I froze. The man in the suit was inside the store. He was standing by the coffee machine. He had his briefcase on the floor next to him, and he was calmly pouring himself a cup of French roast. My phone was in my hand. My mouth was open. How? I stammered. How did you? The doors are locked. All the doors. They're locked. The man turned. He wasn't smiling anymore. His face was just nothing. It was all business. He looked bored. You weren't answering the window, Mike, he said. His voice was smooth, professional, calm. And you definitely weren't answering the stockroom. I had to use the roof hatch. It's a pain, honestly. The latch is rusty. What do you want? I whispered. The money? The register? Take it. Just take it. The man took a sip of the coffee. He grimaced. Ooh, this is terrible. He dumped the full cup into the little trash hole next to the machine. I don't want the money, he said. He bent down and clicked open his briefcase. It wasn't full of papers. It was foam. Black, custom-cut foam. With spaces for items. I'm here, he said. For the inventory? Inventory? I don't know what that. I just work here. The man looked up at me. The guy before you? Gary. You ever meet Gary? I shook my head. No, hey. He quit. They hired me to replace him. The man chuckled. A short, dry, humorless sound. Gary didn't quit. He lifted one of the items from the foam. It was a large black pistol and a long metal tube, a silencer. This franchise, he said, calmly screwing the silencer onto the barrel of the gun, is a front for some very tidy, very serious people. But the owners got untidy, and Gary got greedy. He was skimming. He snapped the gun, testing the weight. Gary, he said, looking at me, didn't check the real manifest. Big mistake. My brain, my stupid, slow brain, was finally catching up. You're a hitman? The man shrugged. I'm an auditor. This location is being liquidated. And you, Mike, he raised the pistol. You're an unaudited asset, a loose end. And I realized the knocking, the pointing, the staring at my name tag. It wasn't a ghost. It wasn't a prank. He was working. He was testing the locks. He was checking the security. He was confirming my name. He was just a professional planning his entry. Please, I whispered. My hands were up. The phone, it was on the floor. Please, I didn't see anything. I don't know anything. I'll quit. I'll leave. The auditor just looked at me. His face was completely impassive. That's what Gary said. He raised the gun, his arm perfectly steady. And my last stupid thought as I stared down that little black hole was that he was right. The coffee is terrible. And that's all for tonight. Remember, the most terrifying monsters are the ones that look just like us. The ones who might even live right next door. If these stories serve as a good reminder to trust your instincts, then show your support and like and subscribe. Hitting that bell means you'll get a warning before the next nightmare begins. Sleep well, if you can.